We're on section E514, state retirement, teachers retirement system. This is giving you some idea of, the, retirement payments that are going out. This is just reflecting the reality of what we need to fund. And you can see it's a lot of money. And, when we did the, underfunding of the pensions and the fact that we had never pre-funded our OPEB, which is basically retired, healthcare, this, got addressed, but, you can see that it's a very substantial amount of money and the underfunding is still continuing to be paid for by the general fund. So between the state employees and the teachers, when you think about the amount of general fund there is, the percent that is going for these costs is very substantial. And I will say that we have a request, and I'll go into, I guess we'll get through the teacher and then we'll go to others as well. Yeah.
Am I reading this correctly? You that 37 million, when you said a normal contribution, that would have been what would have been had we not underfunded there, and the rest is all.
Well, no, the normal includes the amortized liability payment as well. The normal, it has that added in, I do believe.
Senator Kitchell, Chris from Joint Fiscal, the normal would reflect, that's the piece that reflects the cost to provide a future benefit to today's teachers. So that's what was paid out of the end fund.
That's what's called normal.
But I believe, well, I'm thinking of state employees at this point.
And the 163.3 is the piece that deals with your underfunding.
So had we funded it properly, we would only be paying 37 million instead of 163, or like no round numbers.
As I
Like
said,
that.
if anybody's sitting around this table in 2038, you will have a lot more money to address all the needs. People need to realize how many hundreds of millions of dollars are right off the table because of past decisions to underfund. And that's a lesson. It's easy to say, oh, well, let's do it, you know, and it'll free up some money for something we like to do, but you're seeing here in very, very stark terms, when you have to deal with an obligation and an underfunding, what it means from a budgetary perspective. So this is just, the amounts that are, we have to pay. And then in 514.1, this is, this is for the VPIC budget and how it gets allocated across the pension funds. So I think, and you've looked at this pretty carefully, Chris, and I think the numbers are okay.
Yes.
Unfortunately, they're very large. And as Senator Sears indicated, all the underfunding from past is being picked up by the general fund. Right now, the education fund is paying the normal cost for the.
But is that, is the normal or either reflected when we discuss costs per student?
I think so, because it's right off the top.
Yeah, so I think it's giving false information that actually our per student cost.
Higher than it is.
Is much higher than is reported. And I think Vermonters deserve to know the actual cost per student to educate them in our schools around the state.
We'd also want to know if other states do it, because we're often compared with other states.
Well, you know, it's sort of like a lot of things where we may need to be the first to be transparent. But if you're going to be transparent about education costs, which is a huge expense for property owners, renters, and everybody else, then I think it should reflect the actual average cost per student. And I think it's wrong that we've been undercounting what it really costs.
80,000. 500.
Well, I just want to make sure we're transparent with what we're reporting as the average cost per student.
Well, as you can see, B is a breakdown of the 201.
Well,
And it's
You know what,
showing what the
one could
normal
argue-
is, and then it's showing what the accrued liability payment is.
yeah, well, maybe it shouldn't be the accrued liability, I could understand that, but the cost for retired teachers and current teachers is a real cost, one that is part of the education, cost of educating students in the state, and should be reflected to be truly transparent.
Well, the 37 million definitely should, because that's for
Yes.
the current workforce.
So I'd like some language that requires the Department of Education reporting the average student cost to include these costs.
Well, this is getting us into a territory that we haven't ventured before.
And it is gonna make it look like we've significantly raised the amount we're spending to people who don't understand the new inputs.
But when the Department of Corrections announced they were spending 94,000 per inmate in Vermont versus 30-odd thousand out of state, in our committee, it at least reflected what the real cost is. And I think that's being transparent.
But
And and obviously there were groups who went running around saying, well, 95,000, we can save you by cutting by 10. You know, obviously you have to cut by bigger than that.
well, there's been an effort, I think, in the House, and that's been proposed, that although it comes out of the education fund, it comes off the top. What is the amount of the retirement costs attributable to their employees? And that would be part of the overall local school budget, so it does give the transparency and the total spending.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm gonna suggest, we move on, because that is something that's been discussed and wouldn't necessarily be something that we have gotten into, but it might be something that we would, maybe you should talk to your, colleague from Bennington about recommending, that. And it can be
Do it
incorporated,
on the floor.
and it could be incorporated in the yield bill, and the education financing that is coming over in a separate bill. That is probably the better vehicle to,
Right.
um,
Well, do we get to look at the yield bill?
On the floor.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll speak to Senator Campion
and Senator, Cummings, and Senator Cummings as well, because the yield bill goes through,
Yeah.
finance.
can you give me the actual numbers?
It's actually
Emily or Freddie?
about $3,000.
I mean, I don't know what the actual numbers are.
$3,000.
If you take all 201 million, but if you take the,
210.
but if you take the normal cost of 37, which is the, for current teachers,
Well, 37 million is still 37 million,
it's almost 4 cents. Right, on your mind.
Right,
It's not
10 million
like
a cent.
Yeah. It-
well, but it does, but it's what it actually costs to educate a student in the state of Vermont.
Well, I'm gonna suggest, considering our time and our,
Well,
what we have,
somebody would help me with an amendment to the yield bill.
well, I think that would probably be Beth St. James
But if
and,
I had something in writing, it would be helpful.
well, I
I don't know how
think,
to write it.
maybe Chris could connect with Beth St. James or something to help. If you can. Retired teachers, this is the OPEB.
Oh, that's in there too.
Well, this is all for retirees, not the current,
Yeah, but why should they pick up the retirees?
because the agreement is that this is the underfunding, and the decisions that drove the underfunding were made by prior legislators, and so this was the agreement to switch. It was not an easy, if you remember, was something that I pushed for to get this, the normal cost at least acknowledged. Okay. So once again, you can see what it is in total between the healthcare and so forth. I'm gonna close that out. University of Vermont, this is standard language as it relates to the warrants and how the money goes out. apps for, I think that amount hasn't probably changed in a while, but that's a standard carve out of the appropriation. Vermont State Colleges, once again, this is standard, and then a portion, a small amount in B goes to feedback, which is down in Randolph. So shall we keep that?
Yeah.
Allied Health, and this is the use of global commitment.
Dental hygiene, respiratory therapy, nursing programs.
And all this is saying if the global commitment went away, that, that because we have replaced general fund, that they would be made whole. But it's hopefully never gonna happen, or we're gonna really be slitting our wrists if that, well, seriously, if our Medicaid waiver and our ability to use Medicaid for the, many of the expenditures that we do, it's over 100 million, I think, at the list, it's pretty extensive. So, on to 605, and this is VSAC.
This is standard annual language, but the construct was changed by the House for clarity and accuracy.
Okay, and you, 25,000 deposited in the trust fund. What, do you remember what that is? I know the 300,000 for
You told me
aspirational.
somebody here knew something, but.
Yeah. And if you'd be paying attention, they can answer the question.
Clear funds.
What's the 25,000 on page 175?
Staying pretty long.
What's the 25,000 trust fund? If anybody were to ask me, I haven't got a
I
clue.
didn't remember.
I think it's gonna
I
be a
don't know.
trust fund
I gotta go through these.
for some of the workers.
Well, this is Senator Brew's section of the budget, so maybe I could ask the.
Right.
I will ask Richie later.
I'll find out tonight.
It's more informational than anything. I don't think we're gonna change it. The 300,000, that's aspirational, and that's really to try to get more kids
Right.
engaged in either higher education or some certificate program after they graduate, assuming they can read by then.
And I.
The trust fund is for children who have been or are
Should I
in
pause it
CF
here?
trust. Yes.
Okay. Trades, Vermont Trades Program and, remaining, so this is pretty straightforward. Okay. All right, now we're down to, we'll close that out, Brady, and then we'll move on to, needs-based, and that's just giving some money so that our kids that, don't come from wealthy families can have these opportunities.
Buy the books here, be helpful with transfer.
So this is something we did in this committee, and I think we should support our work.
I do too.
Okay,
It's good to support what we do.
yes. And then through 704, Forest and
I've got
Parks.
one question.
On Forest and Parks?
Yeah, this is to water quality, but it's not drinking water, is it?
No,
No,
no.
This is the longer.
it's
This is
financial.
the loggers.
Waters to,
To what, so it has to, because there's a lot of erosion and,
right, have we limited logging by time of year?
yes.
Yeah. Since
Like,
last year.
so, we're, with the storms that we had in July, we've also, wiped out much of the logging season.
It's about, I mean, yours by conditions.
So are you working on any help for them?
No, we, actually, they
This
came
is
in, this is what they wanted, this was their priority, there was some discussion around some kind of like a bee gap, a tree gap is
Yeah.
done. But in essence, with the money we had available, this is their recommendation of how to be spent, and they wanna take the occupation, they wanna, increase the education, master water education practices. And so this is reflective after we had met Sam Lincoln and, Mr. Dana Doran, came in, and so, this is, I would say now, A&R, Forest Parks, they had some feedback, they would have to provide some contracting or whatever, but that's gonna be.
I'm getting
It's about half the time. They used to do 110 days, down to 6.
So I know that a logger from my area ended up in Pennsylvania because he had all the equipment. It was he couldn't do logging.
but he could go down.
He could get out of the country.
Um,
Well, they had less.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have the damage of life floods.
and, shall we, and now we're on to, registration plates, the building right features.
So section E 910, this is related to the earlier amendments to statute related to building right futures. So there is a DMV special plate that you can get. So because the fund name was changed in elsewhere in statute, the plate statute was changed as well. The fee isn't touched or changed at all.
So these are just updating the language.
Yes.
We're on that. No more like this,
More than the license plates.
you take it off.
Yeah, it's just that the yellow sticker.
Now, we won't get into effective dates, although Senator Westman made some reference around the waiver application. Language for Meals on Wheels should be effective upon passage so that it gives the agency the legislative endorsement of that waiver application.
It's the waiver application is, I believe, effective on passage, if not effective retroactively to March 1st.
Okay, so that you think is taken care of?
Yes, and point out to the committee, there's also section E 915, which allows for funding beyond what is statutorily authorized in the prescribed formula and statute for the town highway aid program. So that's just a 2-line section right before the effective dates.
They could give more if they had more.
So that the appropriation doesn't go against statute. So the
They just always
appropriation
put it in there even if we are not going above the formula.
it's, I believe, this year.
In Christopher joint fiscal, this language is required anytime you deviate from statute. There's a formula in statute that dictates town highway aid, and the transportation bill that the transportation committee recommended that will be coming here soon does indeed deviate from the statutory formula in an upward direction. So this language is required.
If the money's available.
Well, it is, isn't it?
It's available.
It's available,
Although it kind of corrects the formula.
yeah,
But
because,
it's deviating the existing, it's still deviating from the letter of the existing statute.
so this just makes it with what the T-bill ultimately
Yes.
is doing. It's adding 800 and how much again, 60 or, yeah, more to the town highway aid. All right, so we've gotten through this.
One time that I got,
Oh, well, we're gonna have to keep working on our one times. Yeah,
well, what you mentioned,
all right. It's not the church.
no, but it's,
Jeez.
but it will be the church later. The working with the victims, Center for Crime Victim Services, there's 300,000 that they were supposed to get from the search fee and it didn't get worked out right. So it's created a $300,000 deficit one time in the miscellaneous judiciary bill, working out the language so that they'll be able to continue to get the money. And I don't know if that was added to my one-time list or not. But it's
You said you were
300,000.
gonna take care of that on your list.
Yeah, but I thought I could take care of it in the miscellaneous judiciary bill, but I really need the 300,000 for the deficit. I can take care of the,
Well, can you take care of it on your list?
I could take care of it as long as it's considered one-time and not base.
Is
It's
it-
not base.
It's not based?
No.
Because they came in and met and with me and,
No, it was a mess up in the. I mean, I can get somebody all the information, but it was a mess up in the collection of a certain surcharge.
so, that's, we'll add 300,000 to our one-time list.
Yeah,
Okay,
and then the base should be taken care of as we take care of it in the miscellaneous judiciary bill.
all right, so,
I misunderstood her, Jen, thought that I was fixing it retroactively.
And we did find out about the monument.
Yeah.
And we did appropriate 25,000. It was through the, Center for
Oh,
Crime
okay.
Victims. So if we do anything more on the one time, that would be where we go through. It wasn't through Better Places, although I gathered they maybe applied
They
or
might have
something.
applied to that.
Well, that brings back memories. Okay. Anything else, Grady, that we've got to you?
I don't believe at this moment.
Now, people are still throwing requests at us and it is overwhelming, I have to say. So we've just talked about pensions. The SEA would like to have us fund several actuarial studies that in fact would, and I've spoken to the treasurer, would add costs to our pension system. And if you did them, once again, it's the issue you study and you have no intent of doing it. Not only that, when you make a change, like we did with the COLA and with teachers, you not only have to account for it in the ADEC from now on, but you also have to fund, the potential cost of that benefit. As a one-time, and for teachers, remember, was over $9 million. So, Chris, I don't know if you want to speak to it, but anyway, I wanted you to know that that was a request. I think it's also, as we're looking at requests, and I know that when we get into our community-based organizations, the administration, and we're gonna be probably putting Pay Act in this bill because they just negotiated it. But the Pay Act has a COLA increase of 4.9% first year with a 1.9% step increase. So.
Starting at FY 25.
What?
Starting at FY 25.
Yeah, the first year, and then the second year, there's additional increases. So we are going to be looking at our proposed, what would be the cost of making some increases to the very agencies that provide services to Vermonters. And it just ties back to the privatization bill, and that is, if those are the wage increases that this administration is giving, while at the same time level funding, other organizations, the disparity becomes so much greater. The competition for workforce becomes greater. And the privatization bill that we said needed to be a study, I don't know how mathematically you could say any of these organizations could provide the same service, in case management's a good one, for this, and pay the same amount as a state employee with the healthcare, with the vision care,
That's it. 20%.
and and do it for 20% less.
Yeah.
So this is just an example of,
Want to negotiate.
well, that's the administration, the governor's staff has negotiated it. So, we are going to have the, Pay Act, included in the budget, and that's not uncommon.
But there's nothing in there now.
There's money, the money's in there.
So we had anticipated some of
Yeah,
it.
the governor's budget built in 31 million, I believe.
So it's gonna be high.
No, I think it'll be enough, but.
But the problem, in my mind is, if you're, just use the local mental health center, for example. You've now got 0% you got.
Yeah.
To make up for the cost of living for your employees in the state of Florida, just got 7%.
For the second.
They're already making.
So now you're, that's gonna get funded. So now, how do you compete with the state employees? If you're a little town like Manchester, and you've got a you've got a good police department, how do you get the police officers to go to the state police and get that big of money? And they're already trained. So it does create a huge imbalance.
Between the local.
It does, it really does.
Yes, no matter what the position.
Snow.
The only thing they got competition is the Betty's.
So, I'm going to, Emily, now that you're here, I'm gonna have you trade seats with Grady, and we're just gonna have to start going through, one times, not the base, the base. And we're gonna have to make sure that we've got all the one times that we need to have. And we just.
Is this a new one?
This is the, yeah, this is
Is,
the base,
Updating.
the new.
And so, we have not made any, sort of final decisions, on the base. And we're gonna have to, add, and on one times, we're continuing to get, and we're just gonna have to make sure that we've got them on. But we are not gonna be able to fund them all. For example, the regional planning commissions would like 5 million more for Brownfield. And the list goes on in terms of, what we don't have on here. The House did nothing for food bank. There's been some desire to, meet nutritional programs. I've been really concerned about our hungry kids that, backpack program and, how that gets funded, and, that is usually done through local food banks, because these are kids that go home to nothing. And so I'm just saying, please, I don't want anybody to say, I made a request and you didn't consider it. But I can tell you that the, list is much longer than we have the capacity, to support. And so I'm gonna start running through, should we start on page 1, and we're just gonna have to start closing some stuff out. And the first one, I'll leave it for you, Emily, to start working us, and this is with the higher ed. Is that the right line you want us to
Yep,
start on?
start right with line 1, so there's a 3% increase, sort of similar to the governor's budget instructions for all the higher ed appropriations, state colleges, UVM, VSAC, et cetera. And this
So we
is the
gave
value of that.
3% to higher ed, but none of the community-based organizations.
And they were asking today for 6.5.
I know they were.
Yeah,
who,
I know.
They've asked
Yeah.
right along,
community-based organization?
Yeah. How did,
and we've costed out, for purposes of discussion, what a 3% to include that rate increase and what that would be. It's millions of dollars. So,
within the request from the state colleges came in for what? 4 million?
An additional
3.4.
Is that, and is that's above this 3%?
Yes.
Yes.
So again, I should say, so this orange box is, right, the items that was in the governor's budget that the House agreed to.
Okay,
The next one is the ones they don't agree with, and then we have on the back is the Senate bill, the separate bills, and then in the sort of start, the other base increase acts.
all right,
Tried to break it up into
thank you, that.
chunks.
So we thought it would help organize our discussion, so if we could do it this way, and then, and why don't we just start this, we might start ripping through this. And,
orange side.
yeah. So do we agree with the higher ed, but we're thinking that if we do 3 for our higher ed, that our goal is to do 3% in a broader way. 2 superior judges, that's definitely, something, and we pulled the bill that came out of judiciary that had the 2, and so,
So this is a separate than what we will get from the judiciary?
yes, this is gonna be, Senator Sears
This
will
is
be,
already in the government.
Yeah.
What did I read? There was a Digger article that said they were thinking about using increases in fees to pay for those judges.
No.
no,
they
that was a
think-
different
well,
issue.
yeah.
Different.
They were gonna use the fund that they've already been using, which is part of the
The deficit.
tobacco fund.
Ah.
Fund new Superior Court judge,
The new,
which was the judge
floater,
on that,
whatever.
the floater.
Yeah, but that came out of the Chin's money.
That came out of the chin. Was it?
In fact, originally it came from the practice zone.
Yeah, but
No, there was another one where the House was gonna increase fees to support something.
Yeah,
Oh, that's 880, that's in our commitment judiciary,
Yeah.
it's not coming out.
okay.
It has the money for Bob Paolini's access for justice,
Got it.
I know.
and it has a fee.
Okay, I'm gonna go, if we could, go back to the sheet, mental health crisis specialist.
So in this one, so there's two transactions, or there's gonna be three on the sheet related to mental health crisis specialists, and these are in the Department of Public Safety. This is putting the money in the base that's needed to fund the 8 that are currently stationed at the barracks.
All right, so it has nothing to do with the additional ones.
No, this is just the base ones and make sure that the money is in the base budget for those going forward.
These are the embedded people?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Recruiting incentives in the military. That's 20,000?
Hmm.
No.
I know.
Why is that, that's base? Why is that in the base?
Is that 20,000?
It'll be 20,000 going forward.
Well,
The base.
they've got a problem, I guess. We can come back if we needed 20,000, I don't know what it looks like. Vermont Guard operating expenses, that's pretty modest. That's a court settlement, and that's probably something that we absolutely have to do. Residential treatment. Viva,
I think this is just increased base money for residential treatment rooms. I can get a little bit more detail on that one if you want. Off the top of my head.
maybe higher utilization too. Or maybe we're bringing on an additional program. Well, it can get more. Permanent, supportive housing, DCF. That's part of getting. Not only, once you get a family or household into housing, keeping them, making sure the rent's paid, the supportive, the oversight, et cetera, so, I think. That's a acknowledged need. Skilled nursing rate for, stabilization. That,
Is that the one we thought would be higher? At the end of the year?
now this is the base rate stabilization. What, you're thinking about is the emergency relief that was provided, and we had the debate of 17 million.
Right.
And I think, and the thought was, in fact, that was going to come in higher. And I think it probably will, but this is, remember that the base year was up back, and with inflation and with particularly the contract nurses or other staff. So we have no choice about this. Our nursing homes are in very fragile state. Skilled nursing loan increase.
Increasing that forgivable loan amount
Uh-huh.
for skilled nursing.
That isn't very much.
What's on top of other money? We've given out a bill. I know, this is base.
Base increases, yeah. In DCF, there's 720, or 7,020,000, 7.2 million, here we go, for temporary shelters, which is different from funding that's currently in the base for
The
temporary
7.5.
emergency housing. Yeah,
Okay, that's where the other seven.
that's where it's.
Well,
So that should get added on to our.
Yeah.
Total housing cost when we get a report.
well,
I
that's,
don't know what this is gonna do, but that. Report
well,
of
but
fifty
these are,
thousand dollars a day to manage the shelters is totally out of control.
well, a lot of that depends on how many showed up, and not many showed up. So the fixed costs are the same, but this is actually to create the beds as alternatives to motel rooms. So, I think we have felt that that's been encrypted. Summer EBT. That was something we had in,
In 24, yeah.
24. Civil rights contract.
This is the agency of education, I believe this is to have them get into compliance with some of the civil rights requirements.
And the animal cruelty, that was to add the other warden position at, Fish and Wildlife.
Now we can move on to the base part, which is stuff that the House did not agree with, as compared to what the governor recommended. The first two lines, we've talked about this several times before, but they should be taken together, so one of the things, and this is a little funny because it's not really. It's base and not base, in that the governor took $9 million out of the base. That was in the base in 2024 to fund the VSERS pension plus payment. And then it was funded with $12 million one-time carry forward reversion. So it's not necessarily that the House didn't agree with it. The House agreed to take the 9 million out of the base and then fully fund it with the 12 million, but they decided to fund it more transparently than the governor had proposed. So this would be to put the governor had not it shows up in B 104.1 or something. This puts it into B 104. That wasn't in the governor's recommend.
So, committee, this is just an example of the future budget pressure. But it's something that the governor's office has imposed on itself. It's something that's agreed to, it's in legislation. And so this decision to use the money or to fund it in this way is creating a base pressure in the future. But we have no choice but to let it go, and the governor's gonna have to solve the problem that he's created.
But why did it go from 9
It
to
did.
12?
So there was 9 in the base last year was the required payment.
And it goes up to 12 this
Goes up
year.
to 12.
Every year or just this?
Goes to 15 next
And it
year.
goes to 15.
Next year, it'll go up.
It's all part of getting the pension underfunding caught up. It's all part of that package. So the employees basically said, if we're gonna make concessions, we wanna have you make the commitment that you're going to add more money to help buy down that underfunding. So this is that plus payment to the normal and the amortized liability payment. So that's what this is, and it's to fulfill something that was part of that negotiated understanding and the concessions that that employees and teachers gave up. So that's what that 12 million is, and the cap's at 15, but it's gonna go up next year, so it's capped. So by doing this, the governor's got a lot of pressure because he's gotta come up with the other 3.
Plus 12.
Plus 12, correct. But I think we should give him the opportunity to do that,
Do you want to agree with us?
yes.
Good.
So we'll agree on that. They're just making it more obvious.
Yeah.
Okay, DFAP savings, we need to have a little more discussion on that. We know that when we did those estimates, that in fact, there was some generosity there, and the question becomes one, what is a doable amount? And I think maybe what the governor proposed would be a little too much, but we can come up with what we think is.
So whatever we do, we could just get fixed in the VA next year if it was wrong.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I've talked to Stephanie as well,
Yeah.
and she was really key, and as we were doing the calculation, and so. There's language in the childcare program, something about to the extent funds are available. And I think we should strike that language in light of the new construct, because once we have put this program in place, then the benefit is there the same, and they've never, ever had a waiting list. They've always come in for a budget adjustment, but I do think that language creates some anxiety, and in light of how we're financing and with the employer contribution, that language is obsolete and causes a lot of consternation. So I'd like to have us in the budget strike that language.
We can talk to Ledge Council about pulling that.
Okay. All right, on line 19, I think we're back to, we are not agreeing with the House, we're agreeing with the governor, and those new additional positions are going into DPS, period. They are basically
I thought it
staff
was
extent.
2 or 3, this says 8.
I believe there was 8 in the base and there's another 8, I think.
I was adding 4, right?
The House split it up.
4, yeah.
The House split up and put 4 into DPS and 4 into mental health.
Something,
And we have agreed, we want to put them all into, public safety.
okay, so both the governor and the House agreed on 8.
Well, they are embedded,
I
they're,
thought the
they're-
House went to 12.
no,
I'm just thinking there needs to be some relationship with the Department of Mental Health.
there is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, by design and in fact.
Right.
You know, as I said, what was really, sometimes we have great ideas and agencies say, yeah, forget it. But I do think public safety has really embraced this and hiring Warning Fox to oversee it. And these employees are, these individuals are employees of the designated agencies, so they have all the clinical support and supervision and so forth. But we cannot, we checked it out, they cannot be, we cannot MCO them because of the connection with law enforcement. But they are a staff extender, and I know when Colonel Birmingham came in, the recruitment and the
Yep.
difficulty of hiring troopers is just getting worse and worse.
So this is only for 2 though, right?
No, this is for 8.
Well,
For
Eight.
peoples.
That's the 8. The House divided, gave 4 and put the other 4 in mental health. So we're concurring with what the governor did. That's consistent with our whole intent when we started this embedded concept.
the
Well, it doesn't cost any more in that sense. We're just, it's just keeping them all. Yeah, all with a DPS. HSDA funding.
So that's related to that. That's where they moved the money for the 4 that took out of DPS, they put it in the Department of Mental Health.
So
That
we need to,
zero out.
we want to take that, you'll correct that then,
Yep.
with our decision to keep them all as proposed.
Yep.
All right, AOE, remember we had a bill for a CTE coordinator that was in the governor's budget. It was in the not the literacy, the CTE bill that came out of our ed committee. And we had had some discussion about putting the position in, the House took it out. This is a workforce issue. And I think we need to be careful because we have some people saying we're not doing much for workforce. But we're doing a lot for workforce when you think about what we're doing with the aspiration, what we're doing with some of the work in BSAC with the other careers to one of the requests in a program that we funded, which is a consortium, is Serve, Earn and Learn. And that's Women of Vermont Works for Women and Audubon. And so I think people forget what we've already done.
We have a myriad of programs.
And then all we're doing with, in healthcare, there's a tremendous investment. So I think we've had some earlier discussion. We felt that was something we wanted to, do. Truth and reconciliation, this simply got left out and this was a correction and, the governor, I think, found the money, so I could close that out. Arts and historical, this is just simply to give them the money so they can draw down the federal match. That.
Yeah.
Federal match for the Arts Council.
For the arts,
Fee
and
for
then the
space.
fee for space for the, yeah. We consolidated the 2. This actually means, line 24, that the Center for Crime Victims ended up 40,000 ahead. And it had to do with the movement of a position. I
Right,
believe,
the AG.
to the AG, which got fully funded in the AG's office, and they left the 40,000 share of the
Right,
center split. So that helps them as well.
yes.
You like that?
You're agreeing with the House?
LUSBA, that we had not done,
We should put that on.
and that has to do with the, visiting nurses and the home health reimbursement, and we did not do it in the VA, we deferred it to the big bill.
So we're putting that in.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, DLC contracts,
Is the House added 2 additional contracts, or funding for contractual services, I believe, related to, one is rape prevention, and the other one is other training, I believe, for
Did you
TOC.
get,
We need.
I don't know why we wouldn't fund those. If it's for, what's the first one you mentioned?
great,
Rape prevention, yeah.
Right, prison rape elimination.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that would be appropriate. I think you have to do that, actually.
okay. And then, once again,
What was
AOE,
the other part of it though? Was it all the prison rape?
no, training of some
Training,
variety.
I think.
It might be training in that area. I
Right.
remember talking about the commission, but I
Uh-huh.
think it's training in that area.
And then 27 is the 40% general fund for ABE, so we've hammered that to death. Well, we'll find out what the other training, but I think certainly prison
Yeah,
rape is a
yeah.
terrible problem.
Oh, and sex offender treatment program.
Oh,
Oh, that's right. Thank you.
okay, so let's flip over on page 2.
Page 2, so the green box is the other bills, so I included the House bills. It's just sort of a question mark, not knowing where what the plans are with those, and then the base appropriations that are included in some of the Senate bills that passed. So far, I can walk through them individually if you want me to, or
We're not done with them.
Was any of these passed?
No.
Both bodies?
Not yet.
Some of these we just got them. The bills,
Or what about the S bill?
yes bills
Oh,
have
yeah,
passed,
yes.
yes bills have all passed.
and the H
Here,
bills
yeah,
are actually
that's-
going to be,
Passed both bodies.
they're gonna be morphed into either an appropriation if we decide to do it, and the tax bill will be done in the miscellaneous tax.
There might be some language changes that are important to include
In what?
for each of those. For some of those.
What depends on what we find.
Yeah,
Oh, that's cycle.
So let's, oh, the green book's 80,000's on here.
Oh, yeah, so I can walk through the
All right,
base requests.
So let's go, we're going back here, and I'm gonna meet with Senator Bray, this is 213, this is sort of what we've put down. And we need to figure out of that, I was 2.4 million, some was one time,
You're going for four.
That 3.8,
4.9.
no, it was, there were 2 cards.
So
One of
thank-
which was, to put more money in the dam revolving loan fund.
Yeah.
And then the other was to positions and some contracting work. So it was a combination of a one-time on the dam revolving fund, one times for some of the contract work, and then base funding for the positions. So it fell into a variety of buckets. And he wants to meet, and I've given him the memo from Julie Moore about the prioritization.
but she's changed her mind though, I think.
But she hasn't let me know.
It's this 3.8 version.
When I talked.
I need to double check the 3.8, that might include the dam safety money, but I'll double check. So 3.8 might get smaller.
Well, has Julie given you some other
No, I
information?
just indicating, when I talked with her, she indicated 14 positions and the dam positions were the ones that might be less needed.
So I don't think Senator Westman's gonna like that.
No,
Well, not all of the people,
not all.
they put like 6 damn positions, 3 of them I think are really important.
Well,
And
then we need, as a courtesy,
For
we're gonna
that.
go back, because I've asked the chair of the committee to, look at what Julie Moore provided me, in terms of her prioritization. And, he wants to meet. Now, if we've got a different priority group, or we have a difference of what those priorities should be, I guess we're gonna have to have some further discussion, but, I haven't had that yet. So I don't know what document you've got,
I have just a summary of what's needed, and then my conversation.
oh, well, I have,
So there were four dam safety positions and 2 limited service,
Right, for 6.
right, for 6.
And,
Hey, see ya.
and I
2 of
think,
them were,
I think the limited services positions and one other, she at least in my conversation with her, were higher growth, and then the other 3 were
yeah.
down growth.
yes, and what she did is take all that was in the bill,
Right.
divide them from high, medium,
Okay,
and
that's
low.
fine, yeah.
Okay. So I'm hoping, we're, I hope that we've got the same information.
Yes.
And it, okay.
Yeah. We were.
All right, so let me, and the last one was in the bill that we had, and it was 310, and that was to really do some more work in anticipating future, emergencies. What request was 4 positions. The governor's budget had 1 additional one over what we had, have in place. That's what I was told. And, did we create it? We must have created it. If the governor proposed.
The governor had one, and there's one now and he wanted another one.
The governor wanted another.
That's what I understand, that there he had one in his, but
That's what Senator Hardy told me.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't remember seeing, did we create a position?
We can check.
Okay. What, so the request was for 4, and looking at what we might have, this is if we did 2 more, what the cost would be. 4 was another 400, and these are base spending.
I know the request was to get to 7, because it was gonna be half of the counties. But there was 2 and the governor added 1, but
I don't
doesn't
know.
matter.
The governor did add 1, so this would mean that we're adding a total of 3, which is not, it's fairly substantial.
Yeah.
The only other thing that we need to make sure goes on the, and that is the urban search and your rescue. Are you putting that on your one time? Okay. Now let's go down to new requests.
So I can start with the Green Book one. We got a request from the administration. LexisNexis, who publishes the Green Books, was giving us free updated ones, and they no longer are. The executive branch, the judicial branch, the executive branch provides them through municipalities for free per statute, and so with them not being free anymore, I think they're half price or something, but the agency administration is gonna need additional money to be able to provide those
So
resources.
this is a tribute to Sarah Clark. She's come over and asked.
Right, the towns really need it. This is actually sending a whole set of the green books to every town.
I don't believe it's a whole, I think it's just the update, so every year you
Yeah.
get, they publish a couple new
Yeah.
green books, and then the pocket parks get updated.
It's
This
just,
is not electronic.
No,
well, it is, but
it is you have to pay for the LexisNexis.
Yes, it's electronic.
It can be electronic, if you pay for it that way.
Most law firms are. Yeah.
Most every place is electronic now, and these are in towns electronic.
Well, look at it.
but it's just a statute that we automatically send them the hard copy.
I
or
think
only if have-
they request the Department of Libraries has to provide them. I don't know a lot of that's my understanding, but
This dollar amount is based on what's been requested through the past historically.
yeah.
Okay,
It's to our advantage to have as many copies of our laws out there as possible.
I think we've gone
It's
$80,000.
It's not much.
Vermont Access, we passed, 181, which, we have been giving $1 million one time, until we got to a stable funding source, out of the revenues generated from the streaming tax. $1 million would go into the base to go to the Secretary of State's office. And we are, so that, housed it at one time and we're just moving it to the base because, we've found it ongoing.
That would be good if it's in the face.
New staff, this is, at, the legislature, there's, a bill that's coming over, I think the Yale bill, provides for an additional position to do ed financing. We only have Julia Richter, who is being run ragged, and in light of, the whole work that needs to be done on school spending and, modeling and so forth.
Must be GFO.
It would be, yes, these are, and then there's one attorney.
Which, yeah, we've done some budget scrubbing based on, turnover and changes and stuff, both offices can do it within the base plus another $50,000. So I believe an official request is coming to JLMC, I don't know the timing,
It says, 100.
Each 50 each one.
50 each. To let council into.
If we could perhaps stop introducing so many bills and the drafting requests that go nowhere, perhaps we would be. When you think about the amount of staff time it's taken to do all this drafting, it's incredible.
Well, certain numbers,
Didn't on the volume
I noticed in particular house members who
is on
probably have a hundred.
I know.
Um,
And redundant bills with House and Senate.
okay, so I'm gonna keep going because we're getting into some big ones here. Conservation districts, they received $112,500 reduction from last year. And I know Ag is coming in with a proposal, to, address what would be a reduction.
You mean last year's budget or the governor's
The
recommendation?
governor's recommendation would keep 500,000 in the base, but they got 6,105.
They're
112.
112,000 short of what they got in base.
So
Why would that be? Let's do it.
it is,
It is, that's what the request is.
it's for 200,000.
Well, no, but we put a negative number into the governor's. That's.
No, it's already out of the governor's base.
The governor didn't
It would go
include
on
it.
top of.
The governor didn't include it.
Right.
Forgot.
No, he didn't forget.
Oh, but he lowered the amount.
Yeah.
Why isn't it a negative number in the governor's?
This is over and above the governor's recommend.
What?
For this year, but
The Senate.
from last year to,
You don't really need a governor's line.
No, you don't.
No.
No.
I copied the table.
No, you don't. No, none of these are in the governor's.
Yeah,
This is,
Right. You would have to do that with all.
and you've noticed the house is
Yeah.
blank. So these are the ones that we are coming in with it. I need to be clear. We're only vetting our own ideas here. Well,
I think that will be happy.
okay, so we did an increase for the 3% community-based providers. The estimate is that it's gonna take 8.5 million.
Were we thinking Fairchild Center was part of that when we were
No.
talking about are they part or are they
No,
not
they're
part?
They're
not,
not.
no.
And what about everybody else that we thought that they're all in the 45?
Yeah, they are like the,
CNH.
adult days. Yeah, we can give you the list
Yeah.
that's in there.
I don't know if those.
No, the parent child centers weren't in that original.
Oh, so that's why we did.
Yeah.
That's-
And then we discovered that while we had dealt with the Medicaid transportation that is provided to Medicaid beneficiaries via our public transit agencies, that this budget dealt with the 24 problem, but didn't provide any funding for the cost for 25. And what is happening is many, and they were doing a capitated rate, but what was really costing so much are daily trips to methadone clinics, care to special hospitals in Boston. And so the methodology for reimbursement was not adequate, didn't produce an adequate, and there wasn't any, I don't think there must have been any risk corridors with it. So our public transit folks are saying, we just cannot subsidize this because they don't have any really, the only other funding they have is federal for older and disabled. So this is, and this is an entitlement, so this is something we have to do. Okay. Now, these are all the other, areas, that I'm putting out. We don't have to make decisions today. Recovery centers, that was pulling out what the House did and said we're putting it in there to be considered what we do. I know that you've got the legislation, Senator Lyons, you mentioned yesterday about certifications, and that, you know, what is needed and, kind of looking at that within that future next year, but planning piece.
Yeah.
Post-adoption, we heard, that's got into really that convoluted language, and that is to do with the agencies that provide post-adoption support to parents, and that was a request. The House didn't include it. I think maybe they were using the money that didn't go out, but we're not sure. That's that very confusing section that included the shelter for youth in St. Albans. State colleges, this would revisit the, original 5-year plan in terms of what it would be possible for the reduction on the structural deficit, which was set at 25 million, and this would lower it to, 22. And this is a request that we've had. Serve, earn, and learn. This is a workforce program, and
Can we put some money in there?
yeah, our goal is to do that. I think some of us feel that that's a training program and a work experience program that really serves many, very much on the margin. We've always gotten on health professionals for this or that, but these are individuals that really need basic workplace skills. And it's also, an expansion of the Youth Conservation Corps. And as I said, Vermont Works for Women and the Audubon. And so they've come together, and, I would say that this is a group of Vermonters that, from my perspective, oftentimes don't get much attention, but they're really critical to the workforce, so.
Can we do that 1.8 or?
Well, our goal,
They have people.
they asked for 2.3. Which is, now, I think we've been carrying some money. Did you find the answer?
Yeah, well, so FPR has $300,000 in their base for VYCC.
Yeah.
But nothing
I know,
specific.
because we've always been doing the other with one-time money.
Yeah.
So what they were asking is like a 2.3 total in their base. We could split it up and do it.
That would be good.
To put some money in the base, for $1 million is for this ongoing program. Is
Would be great.
that too much, Senator Lyons?
No, I think it's big.
No. What I would do is,
Split it up. one-
and one
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
so,
Do it in the base.
do $1 million,
Do
so
a
it's a
million
total of
base.
1.3 in the base, and then $1 million on the one time, 2.3, that's them.
But are you including the 300 that they have already with Conservation Commission that they do for the regular Conservation Commission, or
That-
not part of the training?
That's all Youth Conservation Corps is one of the partners in that collaborative.
Yeah, but I assume they give money to Youth Conservation Corps to do Youth Conservation Corps work, not training for serve or anything. You know what I mean?
That'd be separate. That'd be separate.
So the 300,000 they have in their base wasn't for serve and learn youth conservation, it was just for the Youth Conservation Corps.
Right.
So it would be another 300, 1.3. Or are you thinking that 300 would be part of, or
Would be, I mean, in total for that, for those activities.
That 3.
but there are 2 activities.
I know,
So I don't
I'm
want,
thinking of-
I wouldn't want to, well, but I don't want to zero out youth conservation.
no, but this appropriation goes through, so it would be a total of 1.3, the 300,000 they've already got for that purpose.
Okay,
Another $1 million base, and then $1 million
sure.
one time.
okay, I get it. I agree.
Judicial system, we had, 17 million in requests, to,
30.
30. And,
I don't know. The house in age 880,
That's where the one
funded
is.
7.51. And that's up above line 32. And that's the access to justice. What they did was they raised the corporate tax effective, I believe, January 1 of next year. And then funded for a half year with the expectation that there'd be enough money in the corporate tax to fund for the full year with both money. So what they did basically is there's nothing in the budget itself. It's all in H8.
So what they did separately is travel down, it's gonna get incorporated.
But
And I'm,
there's still there's an emergency in a number of areas
Wow.
that needs to be addressed.
so I'm trying to look within a box and what I've said, and we've had some discussion.
Yeah.
As a placeholder, I think if we said we could do from the get-go, I'm very leery about this, half year and then all of a sudden things, and so,
Doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work.
26,
no, it's,
you'd be stuck with a problem. Of how do I keep these employees or whatever
So-
funding?
going back, we had the plea from our state's attorneys that we're losing staff that had been funded under a federal grant. And their workload has gone up tremendously because of the number of homicides and the complexity of the cases. We also heard from the courts, and they had a report on court safety and then the staffing that they needed as well. And then we heard from the public defender. And we also heard from the Human Rights Commission.
Human rights.
And so I have tentatively,
Vermont Legal Aid, Vermont Pale, we heard from Vermont Pale, Vermont Bar Association, all these requests, and I will have them out ready for you tomorrow.
so I'm engaging as a placeholder to address all that. And I guess what I'm saying is when we've got a system where we aren't freeing kids for adoption who are in foster care, that's a sad commentary on our system. So I have tentatively in my mind said to Senator Sears, if we could find 8.5 million for all of those justice related expenditures and do it for a full year. And recognize the cost when we're building the budget, that would be a good start in addressing some of the concerns that we've experienced.
But you talk with anybody on the sidewalk and you get into the court system. I mean, people aren't happy with all.
Well,
They don't put people away.
let me start with what Jay Johnson Pershing, the governor's legal counsel, told Senate Judiciary Committee this morning. Thank you for your hard work on S58 and S195. Those should help our system to respond better to your complaints. And she went over some other issues. So I think that what we've already done, if the House doesn't weaken it dramatically, and they keep it as strong as those two bills are, she and the governor are ready to say that what we in the Senate have done advances what you're talking about, Bobby. But, and you voted yes on both. Just so you remember.
So you can take credit, when you're talking man on the street, I have voted for some bills that are gonna help address that problem.
They'll hear it on the news instead of hearing somebody got a suspended sentence.
Well, if you listen to my speech on the floor about bail, it's part of the Constitution. To remind you, you are not guilty until,
So,
you're innocent until proven guilty. I was about to say you're guilty until proven innocent.
You are.
That would be very.
and the court of public opinion, that may be correct.
Yeah.
Any court
So-
I've ever been to, I had to prove.
So I'm gonna suggest it's 4:45, we're late, and I think people need a break. I'm gonna adjourn the meeting for today. We've pretty well gone through it. And we're, going to have to reconvene tomorrow and just keep cranking away. So I'm going to go off live and